Welcome to True North. It's the podcast where we explore the moments, mindsets, and missions of the next generation of changemakers. Each episode is about going deeper, not just into what someone does, but why they do it and how they stay grounded whilst doing it. Today, I'm joined by someone who embodies purpose-driven innovation in one of the most overlooked areas, food accessibility. Kate is the founder of Freeater, a platform making it easier for people with allergies, intolerances, and dietary needs to discover safe places to eat. She's currently studying an MSc in management at Loughborough University, has a background in architecture from Cambridge and Loughborough, and is building Freeater whilst balancing student life and startup leadership. So, Kate, welcome to True North. I'm excited to have you here. For listeners who don't know you yet, how would you introduce yourself?
I would introduce myself as the founder of Freeater, so a dietary restrictions management app for people with food allergies, intolerances, and dietary requirements. And I'm really passionate about making a difference to people in the world and leaving a positive effect.
So, firstly, I just want to ask, what was it like growing up homeschooled? How do you think that shaped how you see the world today?
Yeah, I think that's like quite an interesting part of my journey, really, in how this has all come about. Yeah, I was homeschooled for most of my childhood until year nine, which I think it shapes you in a different way because you're not around other children like every single day, Monday to Friday, kind of being influenced by other people in that same sense. I still saw lots of other children, but it was more like very specific times at clubs and I did lots of like sports and girl guides and all those kind of things. But I think maybe it made me less receptacle to like the sort of trends, society's kind of things that just come about being at school and everyone wants the same shoes or something like that. I think I'm more able to just be me and like do my own thing. I'm less bothered about what everyone else is going to think about it now. And then when I actually started school, I was kind of like, whoa, this whole big different environment, all these other people. And so I think I was quite quiet, but just listening, learning, taking lots in. And that sort of took me probably a few years, just like even just learning the education system within a school, all the testing, that was quite a challenging change because I wasn't used to all the assessments, but sort of it was very intense, like had to work very hard to understand how to fit into that education system and do well at tests and things. But it made me very education driven, I think, and that's where I really started seeing that I'm very competitive. I, like to do well at whatever I'm doing, and yeah, that took me through into sixth form, and I started to become more chatty, I suppose, more extroverted as time went on. And then when I was in sixth form, like I always remember this conversation I had with my best friend at the time. I was like, I want to go to Cambridge University. And she sort of just went, sure, Kate, like, sure, just laughing, like, what's she going to do next? But that was always in the back of my head. That's something I wanted to make happen. So I just like dedicated the next 2 years to trying to do as well as I possibly could in A levels. I think that was also interesting being born in like the summer, being the youngest in the year. You're not old enough to go out drinking, partying. And so I literally would just come home, work, and repeat most of the time, which allowed me possibly to, I would say, do better in my A levels than I would have done had I been the age to go out and do what everyone else is doing. And I think that was a good sort of starting point for then going to university and doing that. But even then, it wasn't really the route that I necessarily imagined it was going to be. Like, I just thought you'd go to university, that would finish, you get a job. And actually, I started doing a fine art degree originally. Not everyone knows that. I thought I'm going to be an artist. That's what I want to do. That was my best subject at sixth form and school. But soon realised actually I don't think that is the side of art that I want to learn about. I saw myself as sort of an entrepreneur in the art sense, how am I going to make money, but also do what I want to do. I did the first year of that, and then I realised, no, I need to change. So then I found architecture, and I thought, wow, okay, this is science and it's the arts. That's exactly what I like. Like I like a bit of everything. I don't see myself as just doing art every single day. So changed to that, thought, right, this is my path set now. 7 years, I'll just become an architect and carry on. Didn't go like that at all. I I soon realized it's a really tough industry to be in, long hours. And just, I think the change with, I suppose, tech coming in, the world of architecture is changing a lot. Back in the day, it was drawing boards, very, very tough, probably still, but it's like that proper craft of hand drawing things. And now it's all on CAD and things. So it didn't really resonate with me as much anymore. Work for a few years in like architecture practices, realized again the culture just didn't fit my kind of molds and things around how I want to work. But carried on that treadmill, kept going with the sort of, well, I started it, so I should finish it. And I still hadn't gone to Cambridge at this point. I thought, I still want to do that. And I thought, you know what, maybe things will change. Maybe it's just the university I'm at. I need to go to a different one. Maybe I need a different job. Managed to do this architecture course, and it was really interesting, very different take on architecture. That was great. But I just realized it's just not the sector for me at all. It wasn't making me happy. It wasn't right. So then I went back to the start again and was like, what do I do with my life? And that's when I went back to Loughborough, because I think Loughborough's always been a place where I found a lot of inspiration and interesting things to do, and did the MSci management, expecting I'd probably go into some sort of graduate management role. And it was actually not even, the course hadn't started when I found this idea program last summer. Nearly didn't even go to it as well. And I just think if I hadn't gone, imagine where I'd be at now. I don't know. It was basically a program where you were in teams of 4 and you could brainstorm an idea, and over about 4 to 6 weeks, you would develop an idea. You'd be pitching it to these different experienced staff members and external partners and things. And at the end of it, you'd come up with an idea. And it was actually just like an amazing process, because when else would you be sort of working on something 5 days plus a week with 3 other individuals that bring different ideas, and you're just solidly trying to make something. And that's where we came up with Freeater. We originally were looking at someone else's idea, and we realized that wasn't going to work. And we thought, what can we do to support people in the food sector? And that's when I realized, wait, my dad has a gluten intolerance, and I was doing more research online, how many people are affected by this. And it was just insane, like how many people it does affect. And we really did not realize the scale of the problem. And that's when we found that, 60% of people globally have a food allergy or an intolerance or dietary restriction. And even in the UK, for example, it's 20% of people in developed countries, and then 10% in other countries in the world. It's just, the numbers are crazy. They're like, we need to do something about this. There's so much we could do to help people. And then I was thinking around, what does my dad experience on a daily basis? It's tough to eat out and at home as well. And so we just thought there's so much we could do. And that's where Freeater was born, essentially. Yeah, it grew and grew from that program. We got really good feedback and things from that, and started from there.
Just going back to kind of your time studying architecture, what initially drew you to that subject? But obviously you said you started off with fine art. So what made you want to change into architecture?
Yeah, so I realized that I think I'm someone that likes to bring a lot of different skills into my work, and I wouldn't be satisfied just doing one singular thing. So yeah, the combination of art and science, of what it was sold to me as anyway, that is what drew me to the subject. Although I think in reality, you don't actually utilize as much of those two sides as I originally expected to. But yeah, I enjoy the maths. I enjoy the science of it. Like my dissertation was all about passive house and how we can like improve. It comes back to well-being, essentially, indoor air quality, thermal comfort. How do spaces make people feel? How do they impact people's health? So I think I've always been interested in helping people and health, but I'm just tackling it in a different way now. So everything always feeds into the next thing that you do. And I don't think anything is like solely wasted time, although at the time it can almost feel like you've maybe gone down the wrong route, and it has been a long journey to like get to this point, but it's all sort of helped in its own little way, I guess.
What mindset shifts did you think you had to make when transitioning from that student life to founder life?
I don't think the transition for me was that difficult, really. I think the ways in which we work within architecture are quite similar. Like, you have to commit a lot of hours to it, you have to be dedicated, you have to be able to tackle things maybe you aren't experienced in or that are new to you, and just kind of work it out as you go along. You've got to meet those deadlines. You can't just make excuses, you've got to come up with solutions. So yeah, that's something that wasn't really too challenging. And I did actually have an art business called Fine Art Kate from around the age of 17, 18 when I went to uni and I was studying art. So I wouldn't say I'm necessarily a second time founder, but in a way.
Yeah, you had those skills.
Yeah, I did a few bits of it. And obviously Freeater is a much bigger sort of problem, and something that impacts a lot more people, a bigger team, whereas the previous one was sort of a solo art business, and it can only really be a certain scale of that.
So we've talked about also the problem that Freeater is solving and why it's personal to you. Could you talk about the user's journey? So when they interact with Freeater, what does a user experience?
In terms of the app and
Yes.
like, yeah. So when a user first discovers Freeater, they'd be able to download the app, customize it with all their dietary restrictions. And, we provide a wide range of restrictions, try and, make it as inclusive as possible to everyone's specific needs. And then once that's set up to them, the rest of the app will be personalized from there. And at the moment, we have lots of scanning features. So it's about helping people when they're shopping, when they're out and about, when they're eating out. We have lots of like different scanning features, which I don't believe anyone else is providing at the moment. So that's something that our users so far have been really excited about, especially at the Allergy and Free Film show we were recently at. And then we also have the map, and that's where you can find eateries, you can see other people's reviews, you can leave your own reviews. So about your experience, so maybe interactions with the servers, was it positive? Did they understand your needs? Were they able to cater to them? Were there enough options? All that sort of thing. And that just means the process is a lot like more enjoyable because it helps you see what you can eat rather than what you can't. And that's something really important to us, especially growing up vegetarian. When I was growing up, vegetarianism, vegan was not really a big thing. We were usually the minority in a room. So, like, if you looked at a menu, it'd usually be like one or two options, maybe not even really options at all. And that was quite demoralizing when I saw all my friends had the entire menu to choose from. And obviously, with vegetarian, it is a choice, which is a little bit different from allergies, but I still kind of resonate with that. Yeah, something for me was that I just wanted to be able to see, let people see what they can eat rather than what they couldn't. And then the user will also have their own personalized profile. So that's where they can update their information and the sort of hub of their experience on the app. We're at the early stages. We've only just really launched. So we have a lot more to come, a lot more exciting features. This has been built on a lot of research. So we have to date covered about 650 surveys and interviews with our direct target market of people with these restrictions to guide what are the features that everyone needs and wants and how we can best support people as well.
Recently, you were a runner-up at Momentum Valley. I saw this on your LinkedIn, and you're also selected for Web Summit. What did these moments teach you? But even before that, kind of, could you explain to the audience what is it, and then go into what kind of things did you learn from it?
Yeah, so Web Summit was probably one of the first things we really did as a business. And that was a really interesting process because it wasn't a small event. We went off to Portugal as a team, and I think it's 3 or 4 days, and it was this massive conference. It kind of takes over Portugal's Lisbon area. And it's just loads of talks by different people within the tech sector. One of the days we had our own stand as well. So that was quite exciting. We could talk to people, people would go by and they're interested. But to be honest, I didn't really have much time to actually go and listen to any talks myself. We were just so busy with the stand and going to meet with people. And then I was lucky enough to be approached by someone to actually speak in the on the experience stage, and that was one of our biggest or first biggest speaking opportunities for Freeater, and that was really exciting. It was great to get that sort of audience at such a big, event in the calendar, and yeah, it was a fantastic experience, and I think it really gave me the first bug for sort of pitching and talking and things, and it really threw me into the deep end with it, like to be mic'd up and sort of on this stage, and it's like everyone is listening to you at this point. You've got to really sell it and make the most of this opportunity. And it was a very sort of nerve-wracking experience, I think, to try and get it right. And, will people like the idea at this point? Because that was at the early stage. We didn't even really necessarily know what it was going to become. We hadn't got the app, nothing like that. So, but luckily it went really well, and it was a great experience. And then I think we started, applying for other stuff, and we came across Momentum Valley, and it was a local competition, which is great. It's great to see more and more things coming up in the Midlands as well. But Momentum Valley was basically, we would have there was about 15 others that were sort of shortlisted for it, and we got training by the organisers and things like our pictures. There was a day where we'd all go and get support, and that was really nice to meet everyone else who was in the competition, because you don't often sort of actually physically see people. But the actual day itself was really great in Nottingham at the conference centre, and there was lots of talks by different members of the community about financing and being a woman in business and all sorts of things. And it was just a really cool day. We had, I think it was the first round was a 3-minute pitch on stage, and then the audience of about 400 people were able to vote for who they wanted to go into the final, and then 3 of us would go through to that. To my surprise, we did get into the final, and that was really cool. I wasn't expecting that as well. So, but then we had to pitch again, and that was 8 minutes, so much longer, and probably one of the longest pitches I've done that weren't in architecture. But I actually really enjoyed it, and again, I think that's something that told me, I do like to do speaking opportunities, and I think there's lots of really interesting topics within business to talk about and stuff, and I'd like to do that more. But yeah, the response was great. Lots of people in the audience were saying to us, I have an allergy, or my sister has an allergy, or my friend has an intolerance, and it's just everyone always has some connection to it, whether it's themselves or a friend or family they know. And so yeah, that was really great. And I think it was one of the first events that I did as a solo person within the business. So I originally had co-founders, and then we moved into it was just me as the founder going forward. So that was kind of, I suppose, a very pivotal point in the journey for us of going it alone, I guess, for the first time. And for it to go really well was really positive for me, gave me a lot of confidence to go forward, I guess. And especially getting the positive feedback about the pitch itself was just really good.
What do you think is the biggest misconception people have about food accessibility or allergies or free,
There's so many.
give me your top 3.
I think there's a lot of confusion about what is an intolerance versus an allergy, or what is a gluten intolerance versus celiac disease, and people don't realize there is a difference. And I think because of that, sometimes for people who don't have any connection to these restrictions, won't take any of them seriously. So if someone comes with an intolerance, they'll just be like, we'll just eat a bit, you'll be fine, whatever. And really, we need a lot more awareness in society about them, because what they don't realize is someone could actually like get very ill or even die because of a severe anaphylactic allergy. So across the board, we need more awareness. Really, the main one is just that the people don't actually understand the severity, or that, and like, okay, the other day I saw that McDonald's straws, for example, apparently have traces of gluten in them. Who would have known that? It's a straw. I think sometimes you just think it's the food or the drink itself, but actually it can even be in the packaging or the straws or inhalers and all sorts of other things. So I think it's even a much bigger issue, and it doesn't even just stay in the food sort of side of it. So that's something else we're going to have to sort of tackle as a community as well.
What has been the biggest learning that you've had whilst building the products that?
The starting of the business for me. I think we were in a unique situation in the idea program to start off. We just sort of had a team to begin with. It's not like it was one person's idea as such solely, and that they then went and found a team. So I think for me, that has been a really big learning curve of trying to navigate that, really, because I think in retrospect, I would have been better off starting the business on my own from the beginning. I think we could have been 6 months ahead of where we are now if I've just been like a smooth sailing experience. But with most things, I don't think everything goes to plan. But still, like, having co-founders was a very interesting dynamic, especially when it was sort of four people put together that might not necessarily have sort of found each other otherwise, or maybe weren't the right fit for each other. So just navigating that, and also having male co-founders as a female. I think as a whole, there's a lot of sort of people will say like they're not sexist, but you just will see little nuances, little phrases come out that you think, hang on a minute, would you have said that to a male co-founder? And especially when you're not just like one-on-one with someone, it's a team of co-founders. You have the sort of evidence, you can see that that isn't how they speak to everyone else. So that's been really challenging and a big learning curve of, it kind of became apparent that the only reason I was originally sort of voted as the CEO of the business was because they thought, might be quite surprising, but they'd have better chance at getting funding with me being a woman, because there's sometimes like a lot more female funds coming through. And I'm just like, it's shocking, really, that, despite all my skills, my sort of experience being the eldest, and like having done a lot of other jobs and things, that it wasn't based on sort of my ability to lead it, but just on how much this would benefit them. And I think that just comes down to ego, because I think, people do realize deep down that it made most sense for me to be leading it, but yeah, they're just like, oh, but it's just because you have to be female to get the funds. That was something, I think when I went into this business, I thought we're all very equal now. It's 2025. Like, there's none of that female male situation going on. But actually, the longer it went on, I was like, we're not exactly equal. And there is a lot of things going on, not just within the team, but like within business as a whole. Like, it's still quite male dominated, that white man privilege sort of thing. And there's the whole stories of people just going out to maybe watch football together and have those business conversations or something like that, and I just not sure if I can imagine that happening with a female male investor or something. Like, how would you navigate that? So I think that's still going to be an ongoing like sort of situation for me and all the other female founders, or just business people in general, of how you navigate that. But hopefully things will change over time. I hope they do. There are networks beginning to form as well that are where a space for like female founders to come together to discuss these things and try and like make a difference. But we definitely need to see more. Yeah, coming back to, I guess, co-founders, I think it taught me a lot about myself as well, and about how I want to lead a team. And someone told me like a number of months in, starting the business is most meant to be the most fun, exciting time, and everything's possible sort of thing. And I was like, well, no, I'm not actually enjoying this. Like, I'm enjoying the business of Freeater, but I'm not enjoying like the team. It was like a constant battle to sort of be heard and put my point across and try and get things done. And people were coming up to me saying like, wow, you've achieved so much in such a short time. And I'm like, yeah, but it's like this is like a one person team in a four-person team, and it's like a facade of, you know, from the outside, people can think, oh yeah, this must be great for individuals covering all these things, and actually it can be one or two people that are actually running it behind the scenes. And that's when I just realized it has to change. Like, I need to move forward in a different manner. But yeah, since like making that change and going forward as the only founder, it's just been the right thing for me, and I'm definitely sure that was the right move. Like, we've been able to just skyrocket the kind of progress within the business, and the journey has just been so much more like enjoyable. But also, it's not like it's just me. I have a team, but just have a team in a different way, and I think that's another whole sort of story.
You've now transitioned to being the only founder. So I wanted to know kind of how that transition was for you emotionally and in a practical sense as well.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people said to me like, how are you now? Like, kind of almost worried, like, are you okay? Like, how are you doing this? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, I'm good. I'm enjoying it. And it just gave me the freedom to make the decisions quicker, make things happen, get things done, and I could just run with it. And yeah, for me, I think having done things like architecture, it prepared me really well for that. Like, I'd done a bit of running a business before, I'd done a bit of like, you just have to get it done. So yeah, I think really for me that was like the catalyst to just start this thing. Almost really, it was day zero for me in this journey of like Freeater. Um, I just really enjoyed it, and I think society, and this is something I feel very strongly about, is that they will push every time with every application or just in networking events. They'll be like, you need a CTO or you need a co-founder, and that you're going to like fail without them. And I just don't think that's true. Like, there's so many successful people. Like, if you look at like hair syrup single founder business, I would say it doesn't always work out, but that's like anything. You could have many co-founder businesses that end up not working out as well. That just society's decided that that's what you need to run a business, but it won't tell you about all the other options available to you. And I strongly think that unless you're absolutely sure and you've known the person for years, it's not a good idea to get a co-founder, because there's just so many other ways to do that. Like, you can have interns, you can have paid employees, you can have all sorts of different like relationships to build something without having to go through the very tricky and legal aspects of having a co-founder, because it's very complicated, and then you have to talk about equity and all these other elements too. So my advice to anyone going through this process would be to really think about who it is that you're looking at bringing on as a co-founder. Are they really bringing something that you can't have or you don't have? You need them. And are they going to be the right fit? Because people change as well. Like, maybe in the future they'll want to get a job, or they're have a family or something, whatever it is, that then might change that dynamic and it just won't work anymore. And then that's going to be a massive headache for the business of how you sort that out. So yeah, be wary of co-founders and just explore all the ways, and don't just like take the sort of what everyone says and say that's gospel, I have to do the same. I think it's better to be different and do something new.
Have you experienced societal pressure, especially as a woman, to have a co-founder instead of going solo? So just heavy emphasis on the as a woman.
100%. I think as well, being a woman specifically, you're going to get more judgment of not having that sort of male co-founder. Maybe it possibly isn't going to open as many doors, I think, in some situations. But then you could argue, do I want that opportunity if they are going to be prejudiced against women anyway. So far, I haven't really found it to be a problem being the only founder and female. I don't think it's particularly stopped us from doing anything, and I don't think it should. But I think, I've heard other people's journeys and stories of having male co-founders, and I think they maybe will balance the requirements of the business so that they can kind of utilize the fact that they have someone that's male just to support those relationships with other males, I guess. But no, I don't think it should be a problem. And the only way that we can make it less of a problem is to have more female founders because, often we are the only people in the room, one or two female people, and it can be kind of daunting. You feel like, should I be here or am I stepping into some sort of other world? Especially like I think men maybe lean on certain topics, whether that's football or rugby, and there are more and more females like that. But I know myself, it's not something I'm interested in at all. I like sports, not football. And, I think being able to relate to them is sometimes trickier. So obviously people lean towards people that are similar to themselves. And so if we have more females in business, I guess it will just be sort of a catalyst for change in terms of females supporting females. And that's something, I already experienced to some extent. But yeah, we just, if there's any females listening to this, just do it. Start a business, and the only way for change is by doing it and being out there and being a voice for change as well.
What have you learned about being a woman in leadership and what you've given the advice of just do it, but is there any more practical advice that you'd like to give to the women listening?
I would say in ways like actually just practice a lot of the things that maybe are a tendency for what you will see in a man rather than a woman. Like I was doing an accelerator recently, and Dan, who was doing the talk, he mentioned that women before they pitch, they will always apologize or make an excuse about their pitch deck. And I was like, yeah, they do. This is something I see all the time. And why? Why are we doing that? Men never apologize. And I think these are little nuances that, as women, we should probably look out for to not do. And it probably is a detriment. So if we almost become a bit more like take on board the way in which men practice business, it would probably enhance our likelihood of doing well. Like, less apologetic. I've heard about men practicing like outside a room, stood there, like getting themselves hyped up and going, I'm just going to bring the energy. I'm going to come in this room, like own it. I'm the best person here. All this, like psyching themselves up, telling themselves like, I can smash this. They walk in and they're like, listen to me. Woo, this is free. So let's go. And that's exactly what I think we should be doing. Like, just own it. Stop apologizing. Bringing the confidence as men do.
Okay, now going on to the kind of balancing aspect, what systems or habits help you stay grounded and focused when life gets chaotic as a founder?
I would say like trying to do other things beyond the business, like whether that's a hobby or just something completely unrelated. And even when you think, oh, that maybe that's wasted time, I should be spending that time on the business, there's usually something will come out of it. One little thing that you'll go, you know what, that's actually really useful. Whether it's people you meet, maybe they're going to be new customers, or maybe someone just suggests something that's really interesting, or just says something completely not even talking about the business, but just it sparks curiosity. And I think it's no good for anyone to just be sat in a dark room on a computer working away. Like, you have to have influences and ideas, and the only way you're going to get that is by leaving your space, your office, and going out there and doing things. So yeah, I try to make some time for doing other stuff, though I say this when it's actually very tough to do that, when there's always something else you've got to do, another person that needs answers from you or something like that. So easier said than done.
What would you say to someone who wants to build something meaningful right now in university? I'm just assuming the person listening is in university, but they feel like now is not the right time because they've got an education to focus on.
I would say now is definitely the right time,
It's the best time.
usually. Exactly. I mean, I would definitely say in some subjects, I just couldn't imagine running this business and doing architecture. I don't think it's possible. If you can, wow, like superhuman, amazing. But, you know, some of them maybe like training to be a doctor or something is just too demanding of a course. But in general, I think it is the best time to be doing a business. Most universities will have pots of money available that you can pitch for, some sort of support system in place, or there's just going to be lots of people, like whether that's students that you can kind of talk to, find other people, maybe help you in some form or another, or lecturers and staff members that maybe have connections that you can utilize. So it's just like an amazing ecosystem to start it off, and you have less kind of concerns of life, I guess, at that point. You kind of don't have to think about bills and whatever else as much as you would later on in life. So I definitely think it's a good time, like, to just try things. It doesn't even have to work out, but you're going to learn a lot. And then that will just inform the next business idea, and you'll come into that even stronger and better.
Going back to Freeater, and now we're just going to talk about what kind of future do you envision for Freeater? How do you see your deeper mission playing out in the next 6 months to a year?
I think that's a difficult question, really, to answer, but I hope that we're going to make some meaningful, change within the sector and really start like a catalyst for just awareness, really, of this for both people within the dietary restrictions community, but also beyond that. We are really user driven in terms of we want to build what people need. And, I have a big vision for what I want Freeater to be, and I think it can become. And I think it's going to be a very exciting time for the business. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to trying to make as big of an impact as I possibly can to support people and help people. That's my big aim, really.
When you think about your life 5 years ahead from now, what is something that would make you feel proud, or a few things that you'd be like, yeah, okay, cool, I'm proud of this?
I think for me it would be building Freeater to a point where we've like really made an impact in the UK. You know, building a solid community. I think that would be really nice. And I just want to, like stories, maybe testimonials of like how this has helped people in their daily life. That would make me very satisfied that we've done a good job and that this was all worthwhile, really. So that's what I hope that we're seeing in the next 5 years, definitely.
Nice. And where can people follow your journey and support Freeater?
Yeah, so they could find it at www.freeater.com. So that's Freeater. Or they can follow us on pretty much all social media. We're just at Freeater Ltd, or LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, Instagram,
Yeah.
TikTok, etc. We're everywhere.